everybody into the program right here. All right. Right now, we are in a very, very tough, uncertain, challenging, yet hopeful time that we're in. I'm in my 20s. It's getting harder and harder as the way the society goes to get by. A lot of challenges await. Let's start talking about the mandates. Now, as you know, I have not gotten vaccinated. I'll probably be the last person in this country to get it. They are obviously extending their not only mask mandates, but increasingly they have become obsessed with vaccination. Like, you need the vaccines to essentially do anything. And I believe this is going to extend even further. Now, the Consumer Electronics Show, which is going to have a convention very soon in Las Vegas, is going to demand vaccine passports or proof to show that you have been vaccinated or you have been essentially, you're tested negative for COVID. Now, I really believe this is really a sign that we're moving to authoritarian state. We're really moving into a state of insanity, of dystopia. And this is the thing. I believe this is going to really backfire badly because, look, about half of Americans, the adult population, I believe, at least 40%, have not been fully vaccinated. And if they can't go to these venues, if they don't want to get vaccinated, they're going to lose money. It's going to backfire. It's going to strongly harm the Las Vegas economy because we're largely dependent on events, clubs, conventions, a lot of different things. International visitors aren't coming, not to mention that visitors that usually come from California on the road, they're being nickeled and dimed. So what is the point of going there anymore? The Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium, they now require you to have vaccination. It's unbelievable. The taxpayers footed the bill, and now they're not going to be able to use it as effective as it was supposed to be. And it's not just that the NFL and all these venues and everything, they're really not what they used to be. You also have to understand that there's a lot of fighting going on. You know, there's a lot of these events I've seen, there's just fighting, people throwing things at one another. It's absolutely a joke. It's absolutely a sham. And it gets even worse because we know these mandates are done by the Clark County Commission. We don't really legitimately know if these people got elected because a lot of them are appointed, believe it or not. They have a lot of scandals. They've had scandals about 15 years ago. Think about it. You have these people that are bringing in the vax mandates, the lotteries, everything, which I believe it's illegal. Dollars that are created out of nothing by the Federal Reserve. The American Recovery Act, which, like I said, you have this fiat currency system. You can basically do what you can. And a lot of these commissioners, they don't even follow their own rules. They don't have a mask on. And it gets even worse. Look, folks, if they really, really believe that masks and everything is so true, social distancing, if you've noticed in their county commission meetings, there is no Zoom call. I checked yesterday in San Diego County. I found out that there are Zoom calls that you can call in and voice your opinion during public comment. I could have done that in the Nevada legislature. I could have done that in a lot of different venues. Many rural Nevada counties, you can definitely do that. And again, they also tell us that, well, you're not allowed to clap, which you can do that in other meetings. You're not allowed to talk directly at one commissioner. I mean, who makes these rules? How are these rules even legal? This is an open meeting forum. You're allowed to do what is based on the open meeting law. So maybe this can call for a lawsuit, but if they don't want us to clap, if they don't want people to engage in these behaviors, if you allow Zoom call, then there's a lesser probability that that's going to happen. And speaking of the county commissioners, we know they're pandering to illegal aliens. They just had a meeting with Mi Familia Vota, one of the largest shill organizations for illegal aliens, and they're asking them to get the Hispanic community get vaccinated. Yeah, like there's systematic racism why Latinos and blacks aren't getting vaccinated. Well, I said let them do it because you know what the long-term effects of these vaccines are going to do. And I'm not going to talk about it because if I do, YouTube is going to take down this video. I'll talk more about that in my BitChute channel, and you're more than welcome to definitely take a look at it. But we're getting tired of pandering to illegals. All this border crisis, everything is backfiring. And speaking of all that, we know the politicians that keep pandering to illegal aliens are ones like Andrew Cuomo. Last year, he was considered a savior. Now he just admitted that he's resigning. Well, this was the guy that not only did the nursing home scandal, and that's why I believe all these people are resigning, because they just want to get away from their crimes. And I believe Nancy Pelosi and all these people are next. But he's the guy who was the cheerleader who allowed the driver's licenses to illegal aliens to continue. Well, people say, well, oh, Cyrus, they're hardworking people. Yeah, what do you got against them? Well, hello. You get these scandalous scumbag politicians that pander them and need them for votes. And it's no wonder why they're pandering to non-citizens. It's no wonder why we have the borders that are open, because they are losing. They can't do well with average people, so they need new voters to fill the deficit. This is the problem. And if this immigration system that may have benefited my family was designed for this disgusting political purpose, I'm not for it. This country was built on Western European values. And by importing people recklessly from the third world, you get different laws, you get different policies. And we've seen this, how these pro-illegal alien politicians and their supporters, the non-citizens or whatever, they support politicians who essentially not only bring corruption, but less freedom. Well, hello, it was these PACs, it was these immigrant rights groups that say support these guys because Trump is so evil. We need more power. We need more representation. The Hispanic voice. Yeah. And now what do we get? A higher chance of these nut jobs are going to give us more restrictions, more of this nonsense, more of all this mask mandates, vaccine mandates. Disproportionately, we see what this brings us. It's no wonder why we're sick and tired of immigration. This is why many of us support a merit-based immigration system. And again, it's not just that. It's that, again, the Federal Reserve, all these dollars created out of nothing, allows this to happen. Because all this spending for transporting the migrants, giving them benefits, all the dollars that's being given to non-citizens in this so-called Recovery Act, it's created out of nothing by the Federal Reserve. We're really not paying for it anyway, as much as we used to. If you allow this deficit spending to continue, this is going to continue to happen, very likely. And guess what? The question is, can we be at $100 trillion national debt? I mean, certainly you can argue that all this spending is not making the US dollar very bearish. Think about it. Demand is lower than it was in 2019, and oil prices are higher. How do you explain that? Or about the same, basically. How does that make sense? And not to mention, we've got a lot of different issues. There's going to be the fact where this 0% interest rate economy and perhaps 0% mortgage rates, if it fails to pump up the housing market and the financial system, well, this economy is going to crash, just like it did about 15 years ago. And what about technology? Pretty soon when I'm going to be building my neighborhoods, I can push a button and it can say, hey, build this 3D printed house, much cheaper, a lot more efficiently. So why in the world will you need this migrant labor? What are we going to do? Create more dollars or raise taxes to pay for basic income? Hell no. Now, the infrastructure bill, believe it or not, I heard it gives amnesty for illegal aliens. It's just absolutely disgusting and sickening how these people are. Folks, you have to spread the word, and it's not just social media. Go out there, fly something with a message in the air. Go out there, put some banners and billboards in your community. Go out there with a megaphone. Go out there and drive something with a message. We need your voice. We need all this to happen. And this amnesty is encouraging the border crisis that we have right now. And it's not just that. It's our trade policy, NAFTA. It's our military policy, our banking policy. Think about it. We're talking about all these Afghan refugees, which we don't know. They say it's like 30,000. I think it's going to be like several 100,000. They could care less. Why don't we dump these Afghan refugees into where Bush lives? Because he's the one who caused the problem, not us. Why are we suffering the consequences? Obama's the one that escalated out of control. They're not sending his neighborhood. They're sending it to states like Texas and Wisconsin. Notice how they're not necessarily moving to Nevada or California. Think about it. Because Nevada has got enough, and there's not enough jobs. Not to mention California is so expensive. So basically they screw some states, and then they go after another states. So it's not really California voters that are moving to these states. It's immigration that plays a role. Because if you take out the immigrant vote in the state of Nevada, a lot of the elected officials we have would be much different. And I'm going to get to that a little further, but it's already backfiring. This more anti-immigration sentiment is growing. And I'm going to say it out loud. I don't care if YouTube is going to censor me. You're not going to replace those people. We know what it's all about. We know you're pushing them into Europe. It's easy to see because you can't control and manipulate these people. Well, what do you have to do? Brainwash them or replace them, outnumber them. It's simple. And you have people that look like this are able to figure this out. And I love my Persian culture. I love my roots. But I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of Afghans that have immigrated to Tehran, where my grandma lives. And guess what? These people, they separate themselves. They have their own enclaves. They're different. They don't get along too well. Yes, Afghanis, they speak Farsi overwhelmingly. I speak the language too. But I've heard Afghan Farsi. I'm bilingual. I don't understand it. There's still language differences within these people. It's not like English in London or in Sydney or in New Orleans that I can understand it. It's not the same thing. And it brings conflict. And if it's not working there in Tehran, how is it going to work here in America? Oh, but I don't know. America is just this country where we can just make anything we want. It's up for grabs. Give me a break. The United States succeeded because we had people with great values that made it amazing for what it is. European values, Anglo-Saxon, Nordic, Europeans with Protestant values that created our Bill of Rights and Constitution. And by the way, some of the freedoms come from my ancestor, Cyrus the Great. The point is that they're going to try to keep pumping this, and we're going to keep fighting back. They're going to probably bring more refugees from Haiti because of the earthquake. And what is it that we have? We have government support. We have the dollars created out of nothing by the Federal Reserve. We have all of this. Think about it. Those people built the same country, and bringing people from failed countries recklessly does not work. It's an appetite for disaster. And by the way, I want to make this very clear. In addition to stopping all the interventions, I believe that this is a distraction from other issues. I think they're doing this perhaps because they know the Arizona audit is coming through, or many other states that are auditing. Frankly, I think other counties in Nevada should consider auditing their election rolls. They found voter fraud in many rural Nevada counties too. Think about it. By the way, voter fraud can happen essentially among any party. Voter fraud can happen that can benefit even the Republicans. And by the way, I want to make this very clear. Adam Laxalt is running for governor, and I don't trust him. I think he's part of the problem. Even though he may fight against sanctuary states, even though, he fought for Trump and all that kind of stuff, doesn't mean I trust him. He's just doing this to make himself look good. And frankly, I don't think he was a whole lot different than Brian Sandoval. Now, I read an article and I found out that he didn't fight about the Dominion machines. He knew about it. He could have warned Donald Trump. Where was he? So how in the world are we going to support him for Senate? My question is, do you think Nevadans are going to be smart enough to probably support somebody like Sam Brown? Or maybe the reason why they have these Dominion machines is to create voter fraud even within the primary elections. How do you think Michael Roberson won in 2018 primary? Because they perhaps rigged the system to make sure that the candidate who is less likely to win the general election is going to win, and that paved the way for the Democrats. Maybe that's the thing about Laxalt. He wanted to pave the way for Sisolak. And Sisolak, again, these people are puppets. The real challenge in all this is the political machine. MGM, Jim Murren, the Culinary Union. Think about it. Now, the fraud reports are going to be coming out very soon. Maybe they want a distraction. It's false flags. They're going to start blaming us. Think about it. When you hear BS scandals about me, you better be aware that it's false. It's lies. It's deception. We need to be working out for each other. Think about it. Not to mention the fact that, speaking of the fraud and the political machine, Yvonne Cancel, which I've done videos about, she actually got appointed as part of the Sisolak team. Now, she was part of the Biden team. Remember, this is a woman who promoted Latinos Go Vote. They promote the race card. And speaking of the race card, she's part of the Culinary Union. She gets her district. She was a former state senator, covers the Strip. She got big money donors from the casino elites. You have to understand how disgusting and dirty it is. And she was telling me during the 2019 Nevada legislature to don't use the term illegal. It's offensive. I don't care. It's freedom of speech. You piece of crap. So we have open borders for people can come in, restrict our freedoms, tell us what to do, change our laws. Well, you know what? We are increasingly saying no. It's absolutely disgusting. Think about it. And Culinary Union, when they have their racial preferences, I've told you about this. Guess what? In an article, they said, well, we want a Latino congressperson to replace Dina Titus. And I said, look, it's okay for you to have racial preferences. I retweeted that, and then guess what they did? They blocked me. Well, you know what? I got a Photoshop of that thing, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making sure that everybody knows that they are the real racists. They are the anti-white bigots. They are one of the reasons why Nevada had the largest demographic change than any other state since the 1990s, 2 years before I was born, because it's all part of an operation. It's all changing the population, so they control us. They are the real racists. They are the anti-white bigots. And I just saw a comment, the Catholic Church needs to be exposed. Yes, I'm not against Catholics. I'm not against Jews or anybody else, but when you have a disproportionate number of them that are part of this, it raises all red flags. Yes, the 1965 Hart-Celler Act ruined America. I agree. It was one of the worst laws ever to be enacted in the history of our country, which took effect in 1968. Yes, they're trying to divide and conquer and distract us from the major issues. It's all absolutely correct. When the law took effect in 1968, believe it or not, some of my relatives were already in the United States. So it's just to say that, well, Cyrus, your family wouldn't come here for a better life. That's just not true. We had Iranians and Latinos and Asians in the United States before Hart-Celler took effect. Now, yeah, okay, we could have brought some, non-whites into the country. I get it. But let's do an investigation and find out, hey, where's the demographics headed? What is Las Vegas going to look like in 2070? Am I going to wake up in 2070 and all of a sudden blonde hair and blue-eyed people are gone? How do we know this is a good thing? Tell us. Let us find out. Expose what the hell is going on. But they don't want to tell you your plans. They hide it. And we're going to be fighting back. Believe me. And by the way, I know the stock market took a correction. I see it as a good buying opportunity. Do what you can. Raise enough capital. Fight these people. Use it to your own advantage. And they call us racist. They have the race card. They have their own race-based events like Selena Torres, the race-based council. And then when we oppose to what they do, they call us racist. They tell us that they want to have the Aztlan Reconquista takeover and all this other nonsense. And I tell you what, if Mexico was still part of the Southwest, You all would be illegally entering Wyoming, Nebraska, and Louisiana. Because you guys failed to build a successful country on your own, and you need us to pay for your taxpayer-funded services to get what you want. You need us because we're the ones responsible for this society that has succeeded in many, many ways. Think about it. That's why the Afghans are moving here, because they are part of the system. They're part of the plan, and we are supporting them. They would not be here if we didn't support them, if we didn't build this great country. Think about it. By the way, like I said, we Persians, we're not the same as these Afghans. So even we may be having some conflict with them as well. That's just the sad truth, folks. And before I go, I want to make this very clear. There are some events coming very, very soon. This Saturday, there's going to be a couple events on the horizon. One is they're going to be addressing racism. That's going to happen in the Clark County Library this Saturday, 11 a.m. Clark County Library, if you don't know where it is, it's east of UNLV. And just tell them, well, if you believe that there is racism, guess what? Why are these illegals, why are these migrants coming here? To be oppressed? This is the symptom of a bad immigration policy. Think about it. If you bring recklessly low-skilled people in your country, you're not going to do well. So there is no white oppression. It's baloney. Why aren't Iranians underperforming? Why aren't the Chinese, the Indians are not underperforming? How do you explain that? And speaking of blacks, keep in mind, and I know this sounds very politically correct, but the black population in Vegas would not be in the numbers that they are today without the California gentrification high cost of living. That's a fact. And speaking of the blacks in California and New York, and eventually in Clark County, they're the least group to be vaccinated. And I'm telling you, this isn't just the real discrimination that's happening, which debunks the whole voter ID argument. But you know what's going to happen? Not only they're going to have change in their views, I'm going to warn you, this is going to sound very politically correct, and YouTube may take down this video, but these people are more likely to commit crime. They're more likely to steal. They're more likely to loot. And guess what's going to happen? If they can't get in the store and get what they want, they're going to break in, take as many things as they can. You're going to see crime explode in these areas. Pretty likely. That's the sad truth. Our society is coming to chaos. Honestly. And you defunded the police, so what makes you think they're going to do anything about it? Honestly. It's just disgusting. Absolutely. Unbelievable. Let's fight back and just be glad, unlike LA, we don't have a large presence of Antifa. We still have the power to do it. What's stopping us? And there is some good news on the horizon. We're starting to see commodity index is starting to fall. Oil prices are going down. Think about it. And by the way, this inflation is not entirely the current administration's fault, because the commodities index was already increasing in the last few months that Trump was president. Yes, I know OPEC and a lot of that plays a role. I get it. But we would still have the inflation even if Trump was still in office, which some people believe he's still in office. He's just playing his cards right. He's trying to make Biden look pretty embarrassing. I don't know. Who knows? But honestly, I mean, I have had concerns with both of them. At least with Trump, we didn't have the border crisis as bad as it is today. Think about it. So how can you say there's absolutely zero difference between the two? Anyway, have faith, be hopeful. I'm sure things are going to get better. Please stay tuned. Share this video. Do what you can. Thank you.